there's probably three things, three lessons, three moments. One is, I think as a marketer, you get so much perspective having been directly responsible for sales. Being directly a salesperson is a great training ground, but even just from an empathy perspective with salespeople and with the buyer. So you just learn so much being really up close and involved in a sale, how it works and what works and why things work and why it's important, where things go off the rails. I think it's just really valuable. So I learned a lot about marketing and selling through being an actual salesperson. I think the second thing I learned was you really should lean into your passions and strengths. I was never very passionate about sales. I was a really good opener because I love the problem solving kind of aspect of like, what's your problem? What are you trying to do? But I wasn't a very good closer. I just found it a little too routine or whatever. It just wasn't my thing. And so I realized, even though it was like good experience and good training, and I kind of was like, I got to do this. I got to, I don't care how hard it is, I'll do it. Really, it just wasn't didn't come naturally to me. And so when I left and I took this other job that was to a lot of people a lot lower, it was almost a step back in my career. As soon as I took that quote unquote step back, I knew it was a giant step forward. So I think the second thing I learned was, it's great to have diverse experiences, but as you learn who you are and you learn what you're good at and you learn what you have a passion for, you should lean into those things because it's so much easier to be great if you're not working so hard to be mediocre. And that's how sales was for me. I worked really hard to be pretty mediocre. And so I learned put your best energy against your best passion, your most important interests, because when you really feel you're expressing yourself, you're being well used, you're bringing your talents to the work, that's when you really achieve excellence. So I think that's the second thing I learned. And then I think the third thing I learned was that it really matters the kind of people that you're around. It was a great organization. It's very blue chip, Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones, but there were some people there that were pretty just not my kind of people. And they were difficult to work with. And, it just made it not a great environment. So as much as it's about leaning into your passions and your strengths and doing what you love, it's also like who you do it with and how you work together is a really important thing. So I would say those are three really important lessons that I took out of my 5 years working at the Wall Street Journal. The first couple of years were glorious. I worked in one department. When I worked in the next department is when I learned the hard lessons. But at the end of the day, I was happy to have those 5 years, happy to have spent that time there, and happy to have learned those lessons, and happy to be past those lessons.
I particularly like number 2 because I think, we've all done this, but sort of we feel like we have to put in really hard work and that it's going to be really tough and to be just persistent above all and to be relentless. And sometimes, I've had moments where I'm like, okay, is now the time to be relentless, or is this actually not the thing to focus my persistence on?
I've seen in my work as a, leader or manager where, there's just people doing things that they don't catch a break. They're being relentless. They're pushing hard, but things aren't just not rolling well. And at some point you have to say to yourself, I'm putting in my best effort. And I always put in an A effort, but it's just not coming together. It's just not happening. Is this really the right thing for me? Is this the right place I should be? And sometimes the universe sends you signals, like working really hard to be mediocre is a signal, that maybe this isn't the best use of your talents, or things just don't work right.